Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really digging into some sources that cut through all the noise in fitness. We're focusing on something that confuses so many people, getting real core strength and, sculpting those abs. Our mission really is to break down the science behind bodyweight training, precision movement. How does it actually work? Because, let's be honest, if you've bought into that whole myth, the one that says you need like 200 super fast crunches every single day, or that you need some fancy gym membership. Well, you might have been chasing a bit of a phantom. We're here to basically debunk that. We've gathered the insights that show you can build a genuinely powerful, visible core, and you can do it with nothing but precise, controlled bodyweight moves, right from your own home. We're looking for those efficient shortcuts to muscle activation.
Efficiency. Yeah, that's absolutely the key word here. The main thing we're seeing in these sources, success isn't really about volume. It's not about reps or how much you sweat. It's all about effective muscle activation, that conscious connection. Often when people struggle, it's because they're just not hitting those deep core muscles, especially the lower abs. So our focus really needs to be on strategies that will force those specific, sometimes stubborn stabilizers to actually fire up.
Okay, let's unpack that, because that feels like a crucial pivot point. If doing tons of reps is actually maybe counterproductive, what's the real actionable difference between just, going through the motions and truly engaging those core muscles in a way that matters? We need to get that fundamental shift in thinking.
Right. It's almost like the difference between, say, endurance training and strength training, but applied right to your abdomen. The real magic happens when you shift your focus to depth control and precision. Think about it. When you rush a crunch or a plank, you often end up using the surface muscles, right? And gravity does half the job for you. But the deep core, your transverse abdominis, your multifidus, these guys are stabilizers. They need deliberate, controlled input. They won't just switch on by accident.
Yeah.
The sources really hammer this home, this precision approach. It moves way beyond just doing X number of reps. It's about actively feeling those deep muscles contract. When you slow everything right down, wow, the effort just skyrockets because you're adding massive amounts of time under tension. You stop counting reps and start counting like effective, high-quality contractions.
That makes so much sense. I mean, if you take, say, 3 seconds to lower yourself in an exercise instead of just dropping down in 1 second, you're forcing that muscle to fight gravity for 3 times as long.
Exactly. And the technique that keeps coming up in the material, it totally reinforces this. You have to focus on almost agonizingly slow, deliberate movements. But control isn't just about speed. It's also heavily, heavily reliant on your breath.
Ah, the breathing. Tell us more about that, because that gets glossed over so often in, standard core training instructions. How does breath actually connect to activation?
It's fundamental. When you're doing a core exercise, the pattern you want is basically inhale as you move away from the hardest part, the contraction, and then use a really forceful, complete exhale as you move into that hardest part. Think about your diaphragm. When you force that full exhale, you create something called intra-abdominal pressure. That pressure, it acts just like an internal weight belt. It stiffens your whole torso. The ultimate goal, and this takes real mindfulness, real focus, is feeling, as the source puts it, each vertebra and muscle working in perfect sync as you move. If you rush it, or if you're just shallow breathing up in your chest, you lose that internal stabilization. And then what happens? The superficial hip flexors jump in to take over. That's why so many people get neck pain or backache doing crunches.
Right, I've definitely felt that.
Precision breathing. That's your secret weapon for getting that deep activation. Seriously.
Okay, this is great. So we're moving from the why to the how. If we're using body weight and really prioritizing this precision, what are the specific moves? The ones that actually target those tricky lower abs and the deep core muscles, spots people always say they struggle to hit. What tools should be in this body weight core toolkit?
Good question. We need exercises that are inherently designed around stability, ones that force that simultaneous activation across the whole core. So let's start with the moves that teach you stabilization first, foundational stuff. Number 1 has to be the dead bug. I know the name sounds a bit silly, almost too simple when you describe it, but done slowly, with control, it is brutally effective.
Why? What makes it so powerful?
Because it's what we call an anti-move. Specifically, it's amazing for anti-extension and anti-rotation.
An anti-move? What does it actually mean for someone lying on their floor trying to do it?
It means the whole point of the exercise isn't really about creating movement, but about preventing unwanted movement. As you slowly extend your opposite arm and leg away from your body, your natural tendency is for your lower back to want to arch up off the floor. That's extension. Or your body might want to twist slightly. That's rotation. The dead bug forces all those deep core muscles to lock down and stabilize against that happening. It's pure concentrated activation training for those stabilizers. If you feel your back starting to arch, you're either moving too
That synergy point feels really important because the core isn't meant to work in isolation, right? It connects the hips, the shoulders. It's a whole system.
Yeah.
And speaking of training the system, sometimes we kind of dismiss the classics, don't we? But the sources remind us that these established moves are crucial for deep engagement and it's a big if they're performed with that precision mindset we talked about. We're talking about things like controlled heel touches, the classic roll-up, maybe even the V-up. Exercises people often just blast through, making them kind of useless, but done slowly, they become incredibly demanding.
Oh, absolutely. A V-up, for instance. Try doing that with maybe a 3-second count on the way up and another 3 seconds controlling it all the way down. It's brutal. And the roll-up. That demands incredible articulation through your spine and massive core control. It really activates those deep abdominal muscles, the ones that anchor your pelvis and spine. This is where we start building real structural integrity, kind of drawing everything inward and stabilizing. These aren't moves you just power through. They're moves you sculpt with. And the great thing is we can easily bring in progressive overload. The principle of making things gradually harder over time using hardly any equipment. The sources mention simple enhancements. Think about just adding a mini band around your feet during the dead bug. Suddenly there's more resistance to control.
Okay.
Or maybe holding a light medicine ball during that slow, controlled roll-up.
How does holding a medicine ball actually change things if the focus is meant to be body weight? Doesn't that defeat the purpose slightly?
Not at all. It actually enhances the body weight challenge in 2 key ways. First, yes, the minor added weight does increase the raw resistance.
Yeah.
Your abs have to work harder against gravity. But second, and maybe even more importantly for stabilization, it shifts your center of gravity. When you hold that ball overhead during a roll-up, it inherently makes you less stable. Your core has to work overtime just to maintain balance and control the movement path precisely. It elevates a simple bodyweight move into what one source calls a full body transformation session, purely because it massively compounds those stability demands.
Got it.
So if we embrace this precision, we don't actually need complex machines. We just need to be smarter about our body position and maybe use simple tools to challenge stability. Okay, let's shift gears slightly. We've talked a lot about sculpting and activation, but what about functional strength? What does all this deep core work mean for just daily life?
All right, this is the application phase. And honestly, this is where the real lasting value is. We're moving beyond just how things look and into how things work. To push endurance and coordination while still demanding precision, we look at more dynamic movements. Things like the reverse crunch, the mountain climber, even the plank star.
Hold on, the mountain climber? That always seems so fast, almost like cardio. How do we possibly bring precision into a move like that?
That's a common misconception. Even with a mountain climber, the real focus shouldn't be raw speed. It should be maintaining that perfect plank position throughout. If you see someone's hips bouncing way up and down or their lower back sagging towards the floor, they've lost core engagement. They basically just turned it into a messy hip flexor drill. Precision here means actively pushing the floor away, keeping the core braced like concrete, and minimizing any hip movement as the knees drive forward. It becomes endurance through stability. And then something like the plank star, holding a solid plank while extending opposite arm and leg that pushes coordination and stability to an extreme level. And here's the real takeaway nugget for you listening. Mastering these precise core moves, it does way more than just sculpt your midsection. The true lasting benefit is the functional carryover. When your core is trained to stabilize your spine properly, everything changes. You see significant gains in your posture, your overall mobility, and the functional strength you use every single day. It just carries over into everything.
Can you give us a really concrete example of that carryover? Like, how does doing a perfect dead bug help prevent injury when I'm just, I don't know, living my life?
Okay, think about lifting something moderately heavy off the floor. Maybe it's a child, maybe just a box of groceries. If your deep core isn't properly trained to stabilize against spinal extension, which is exactly what the dead bug trains you to do what happens, you end up relying on the ligaments and the discs in your lower back to take the strain. And that leads to pulls, aches, chronic pain down the line.
That makes sense.
But a strong, stable core, it acts like a natural, rigid brace. It allows you to hinge at your hips and use your powerful leg muscles to lift, keeping your spine completely protected. It's the difference between feeling strong and effortless in your movements versus constantly dealing with stiffness or potential injury. That's structural integrity. That is the real transformation.
Absolutely. It really reframes the goal. You can sculpt your body, yes, but you can also profoundly strengthen your core and boost your confidence. All using just body weight and this new focus on detail, on how you move. We started by trying to debunk that lie about needing endless high-volume work, and we're ending by confirming that the focus absolutely has to be on the quality of movement, not just the quantity. So ditch those 200 rush crunches, maybe trade them for just 5 minutes of perfectly controlled dead bugs and roll-ups. The difference could be huge.
Precisely. The whole journey to becoming stronger, fitter, more resilient, it really starts when you question those high-volume myths and decide to embrace precision instead. If you're not actually activating the right muscles, honestly, all the training volume in the world isn't going to fix the underlying issue. It might even make poor movement patterns worse. Critical thinking in fitness really means prioritizing control, depth, and thinking about that functional application. How does this help me move better?
That's a perfect way to wrap up this deep dive. We've gone from anti-extension principles all the way to functional lifting mechanics. Now, for that final thought, we want you to mull over. We talked quite a bit about the dead bug for pure stabilization and the crab reach for that rotational synergy. But if you had to pick just one exercise focusing purely on slow, perfect control rather than speed, which single move do you think provides the biggest, most immediate shift in your everyday posture and your ability to protect your back during daily tasks? Think about those stabilizing demands versus the more dynamic ones. Which one gives the most bang for your buck in terms of functional protection? Something to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us.